Hello there, my very good friends. I'm Andy from What Culture. Here are 10 wild outside bets to win WWE Royal Rumble 2024. Kicking things off with entry number 10, Chad Gable. Now, boy, oh boy, would this be a lot of fun or what? There's obviously a lot of big names going around at the moment as we enter the final few weeks of Royal Rumble build. People talking about Cody Rhodes, people talking about CM Punk, Steve Austin, a bunch of other folks who could feasibly headline WrestleMania. But we're starting this one off with a really wild outside bet, admittedly, because Chad Gable, as much as I love him, and I'm sure you love him as well, not the traditional type of dude they would put in a WrestleMania main event. But you know what? At WrestleMania 30, neither was Daniel Bryan either. Now Bryan Danielson, of course. The case for Chad is pretty straightforward. He's an incredible wrestler who's charming in a Kurt Angle charisma kind of way, and is good at pretty much everything. The Gunther series last year was probably the pinnacle of his main roster run so far. I think a more compelling slot for him at WrestleMania is opposite Gunther, maybe taking the Intercontinental title from him, or maybe his story is just over in that regard. But either way, this is kind of a work rate pick because Chad is a really awesome wrestler. But here he is. Number 9, Carmelo Hayes. Talking about somebody next who has just kind of made the step up from NXT in a moonlighting kind of sense. He was in the recent United States title contendership tournament until he bowed out of that one. But Carmelo Hayes is someone who a lot of people have pegged as a future WrestleMania main eventer. If you are to kickstart someone on the road to stardom and the WrestleMania main event, hey, look, the Royal Rumble is right there. I get the impression personally that it'll maybe be another year or two for Carmelo before he is kind of shot up to that level. But aside from having a full-on feud with Trick Williams, there's really not a whole lot left for him to do down in NXT. Once they sort those issues out, maybe we'll see a full-time permanent switch up to the main roster. Either way, Carmelo is a future star. He is a former NXT champion. He is over. I think he will get over on the main roster as well, and he's going to have a great long WWE career. Number 8. The Rock. Okay, maybe this one's a bit less wild and a bit less of an outside bet than the names we've discussed so far. It's the bloody Rock. He's probably going to be in at least one of the WrestleMania main events, but it's entirely feasible that WWE goes down this route. I don't think The Rock's here to play around on B-level pay-per-views, and I know Elimination Chamber's in a massive stadium this year, but it's The Rock. He's the biggest crossover star in the history of this sport. So, if you want to get to him versus Roman at Mania and you want the title to be involved, Royal Rumble win is a pretty natural way to do that. Personally, I would book him facing Roman without the belt on the line. It just clears the waters just a little bit. Make it more about being the head of the table, the tribal chief, or whatever terminology you want to throw around it, than the belt itself. You could argue that that undermines the title, but I think Cody winning it on another night would be the opposite of undermining the title, whatever that word is. Either way, it's The Rock. He's going to be on the WrestleMania card in some form. Could he win the Rumble? We'll see. Number 7, Naomi. We're talking about both the men's and women's matches on this list, and I've thrown Naomi in here because she's reportedly on her way back to WWE. According to recent reporting, she's about to wrap up her obligations in TNA, where she, at the time of recording, is undefeated as the Knockouts champion, and she'll be heading back to the Fed as soon as she's done. So, mid-January, apparently, the contractual thing all flows out the window. That was a really terrible way of saying she'll be free and available to sign wherever she wants, but her going back to WWE just kind of proves that Vince was the problem all along. It was 2022 when her and Sasha Banks, of course, walked out of WWE, citing creative issues amongst the reasons, and I think that Naomi will have a lot more confidence in how she will be presented when she goes back, and it's Triple H writing the stories, not some crazy old billionaire. And if you're WWE and you want to assure that things are going to be different for her this time around, how about she wins the Royal Rumble? Number 6, Karrion Kross. Death taxes, and Triple H trying to make Karrion Kross a thing. These are the three certainties of life. And look, I like the idea of this new stable with AOP. I think it has a lot of potential. Three gigantic, beefy guys running around, throwing other people around. Got Scarlett over here. We've got Paul Ellering here as well. Hey, maybe Rocco will show up at some point in this unholy alliance. But looks like Cross is in the midst of some kind of renewed push in WWE. Where that ends, we don't really know yet, but we do know that Triple H is very, very fond of him. He brought him back to the company, he pushed him incredibly well in NXT, incredibly strongly, made him champion, all of that stuff. It didn't work out for Cross the first time around when he arrived on the main roster, and hey, look, it wouldn't work out for you either if they dressed you up as a demolition knockoff and had you job out in your first match and all of that stuff. He's in a better place for sure. It hasn't really happened for him in terms of getting over since he returned to WWE and found a home on SmackDown. Maybe it'll be different now he has AOP and everyone else. But Cross would be a real dark horse winner in the Rumble, and it's actually something I could see Triple H doing. Number 5, Tiffany Stratton. If you have a look at the NXT roster, maybe not right now, maybe after the video, but if you have a look through all the names and the photos on there, I don't think there's a single person who stands out as a bigger dead cert to become a main roster success than Tiffany Stratton. She has picked up professional wrestling extremely quickly, going far beyond that initial one-dimensional kind of daddy's girl character to grow into a really good wrestler in her own right, a tremendous character, someone who looks extremely confident, and somebody who speaks really well on the microphone too. WWE are going to push Tiffany to the absolute moon. As soon as she arrives on the main roster, they are not going to mess around at all. She is going to be rocket strapped and she is going to be stratospheric in no time whatsoever. Is the Royal Rumble a little bit too early for that? Perhaps. You could make the argument that maybe she should stay down in NXT, wrap a few more stories, do 3 or 4 months, and maybe come back on the Raw after WrestleMania. Maybe join the main roster then. I say bollocks to that. Stick her on the main roster right now. Maybe she doesn't have to win the Rumble, but hey, Final 4? That sounds pretty good. Number 4, Nikki Cross. Another wrestler who has not really taken off in the way that many people would have hoped. Nikki herself as well, I'm sure, under this Triple H regime. That doesn't mean she's been presented like rubbish or whatever. I'm sure she's probably much happier with the way she comes across on television now than she did in certain periods under the previous creative leadership. But she's not had the consistency of character and matches and everything else. Of course, she has taken some time away to work on her studies and get her qualifications and become statistically probably one of the smartest people in the company. So shout outs to her for those accomplishments. But if she's wanting to see her WWE career really take off, the Royal Rumble obviously is a natural place to do that. This is something of a very wild outside. I mean, that's the title of the video. I don't really need to explain why I've picked someone who's unlikely to win. Nonetheless, it would really launch Nikki to a new level. What that new level is, I have no idea, but for the love of goodness, can creative just come up with something consistent for her in 2024? That would be really nice. Number 3, Jade Carill. Wild and outside probably wouldn't qualify here for Jade a couple of months ago when WWE were parading her around, making her feel like the biggest free agent signing ever. But that has cooled off a little bit recently, perhaps by design. Maybe they just want to let her bubble away in the background, train here and there, sharpen up a few things before they finally bring her up and blow everybody's minds. Nonetheless, if you're putting Jade in the match, she's got to be a favourite. At the bare minimum, you have to use the Rumble to set her up with a WrestleMania program. You have to have somebody eliminate her in dastardly fashion, maybe a Nia Jax or someone if they're not otherwise occupied, and that leads to the match at Mania. Jade would need an out. It's the Royal Rumble. Look, she could just have 7 people eliminate her and that'd be totally fine. Either way, Jade's the kind of wrestler who demands that degree of protection. She is a megastar in the waiting. Is she a little bit green? Does she still have some rough edges to her performances? 100%, but she should, because she's still very inexperienced. Either way, if they're putting her in the Rumble, and I think they will, she's going to get booked strongly. She's going to at least be teased as a winner. And that's why she's on this list. Number 2, Oba Femi. If you're not paying much attention to the current NXT product, and given the state of some of it, I don't blame you, to be quite honest, you might have missed the recent rise of Oba Femi, who I think is quietly emerging as one of the brightest prospects in all of pro wrestling. This guy's an absolute riot in the ring. I mean, he's got that big boy powerhouse throw you around the ring style down to an absolute T. He's a little bit raw, he's a little bit rough, he's still figuring out the pieces, putting them together, but already, just like something like 20 matches into his career, he's just an absolute riot to watch. On top of that, he's a really good promo. He feels really comfortable with being on television. When you watch him, you don't think, yeah, that's a rookie. He has that level of confidence that just exudes years beyond his actual experience level. Oba Femi is going to be a real star in this company. He's just won the breakout tournament down in NXT, and that tells you that they have plans for him. And you'd imagine that there's some synergy between Shawn Michaels in NXT and Triple H on the main roster. They're kind of friends. They probably talk about stuff like this. Nonetheless, Oba Femi, well equipped to make a splash in 2024, whether it's on the main roster or in NXT. And at number 1, well, he's in the thumbnail, it's Brock Lesnar. So we're all sitting here thinking about WrestleMania 40, thinking about what can we do with these titles? What do we do with Roman, The Rock, CM Punk, Cody Rhodes? What about Randy Orton's over there, Seth Rollins? What on earth are we gonna do with all this? Steve Austin might wrestle, I don't know. There's so many people to fit into so many different slots, and all of the options are pretty damn exciting, meaning that whatever happens at WrestleMania, we should all be pretty satisfied. Well, I mean, we're wrestling fans, so yeah, no, there's no chance we're all going to be satisfied, but nonetheless, had to put a chaos option in the list. Brock Lesnar always comes back around. He always gets put in a major slot. And hey, maybe he will F up a WrestleMania program or two. Maybe Triple H will lose his bloomin' mind and go, yeah, you know what? Maybe we should do Brock versus Roman at WrestleMania again. That'll get the fan base popping. I don't think anything like that's going to happen, by the way, but if Brock is available, if Brock wants to do the Rumble, he is instantly a contender. And if that doesn't get you a little bit worried, I know the cowboy stuff was fun, but do we really want heel Brock Lesnar in that role again? Putting Cody over was really good last year. More of that, please. And more of this, please. Check out this video right here. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll have a bunch more Rumble stuff to come in the lead up to the event and afterwards as well. I've been Andy. See you later.